Last question, Scott.
All right, we could go about that all day. So we'll get to the last one. This comes from Bill in Columbus. He says, with Chris Holtmann's recent struggles at Ohio State, what's your guys' opinion on firing coaches in the middle of the season? Who would be some hot names to replace him? And is Ohio State a destination job for a basketball coach?
Kind of falls into that same deal with Notre Dame, because Ohio State's a great football school, and Notre Dame is too. And listen, you're the basketball coach. Just don't get in trouble.
Right.
Just don't bring any bad recognition to us. But I think Ohio State is more, because the Big Ten in basketball is a conference, and they're a part of that. Notre Dame doesn't have a conference in basketball, so I don't think that they would replace him mid-season. But it wouldn't surprise me that if they didn't replace him, though, because it's been a couple of years now. I think his conference record, maybe the last 2 years, is maybe 5-20 or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And one thing we talked about earlier too was Ohio State's going through a transition with athletic directors. Is that right?
Yes. So Gene Smith, the current AD, is retiring at the end of June. Ross Bjork, who was the AD at Texas A&M, has already been named as his replacement. Ohio State also has a new university president in Ted Carter, who is a retired 4-star Navy admiral, who is replacing Christina Johnson as the university president. So there's a lot of turnover in the athletic department. So I think it'll be interesting to see, because there is no loyalty to any of the coaching staff within the athletic department, who stays and who goes. Because I had mentioned this before we even started, that men's basketball and football are the only two profitable sports at Ohio State. I think football made like $50 million last year, and basketball made like 10.
They got $58 million from the Big Ten conference. So
well, right, but. And the thing too with Ohio State basketball is, all due respect to Notre Dame, they're in two different classes of football dominated schools, because obviously football is king at Ohio State, but I mean the basketball program's been to Final Fours, they've been to national title games, they've had dudes in the past. I mean John Havlicek, Bob Knight,
Greg Oden, Mike Conley,
Mike Conley, Mark Titus.
Yes,
jump a couple
Mark
generations.
Titus from Brownsburg, yeah.
But the timing is bad for making changes, because those new people aren't coming in until summer, right? So if you're going to make a change in the coaching, you're going to do that in March. So because of that,
but the AD wouldn't have retired yet. So
exactly.
So they're not going to make the change.
They're not going to. That conversation is going to happen a year from now.
Yeah, and I mean buyouts and all that stuff is always included, but I'm not sure with money at Ohio State if that's a problem. Hey, one last thing before we go.
We've got another local team in the state doing well.
One more last thing on that question. Who would you get to replace him? Would you call Jay Wright, or would you you basically have a blank check from anybody? Who are you calling?
I mean I think all those guys like Jay Wright that have been out of the game, and if the money won't matter, because the money's going to be big. You got a guy like Dusty May, who we always talk about at Florida Atlantic, who we would think would come up and maybe be a great guy at IU. But there's just a plethora of great young. I mean, Chris Holtmann was a great young coach. Spent a couple of years at Butler. I mean, didn't have a long coaching life. Spent a couple years at Butler, and then goes to Ohio State and has a great run at Ohio State. He's just down on his luck. I don't know if it's players. I don't know if things just aren't going right. But he was not an established coach. And so I think there's just a ton of guys like that. As a matter of fact, you might go to Terre Haute, and you may get the coach at Terre Haute. They're 22-3. 11-1 in the Valley. They're ranked 23rd in the country, and it's the first time since the Larry Bird era that they've been ranked in the top 25 in the country. So shout out to the Indiana State Sycamore. We'll follow them a little bit more here as we get down to the NCAA.